Good day to you, dear one. Welcome again with this vlog, or to this vlog rather. We will continue immediately. But before we do, I was thinking about something. I thought, let me remind you. It's always good to do calculations in order to see if things fit and if they make sense. So please, by all means, do that. However, like I said in the assumptions, and that's very important, the larger periods that are also specifically mentioned in scripture, and we will come to that later more predominantly, those larger periods, or the longer periods rather, are a lot more important because they are also mentioned, specifically mentioned in scripture. So it's important to take that into account, and also looking at some rounding differences regarding some additions or subtractions that can also be possible, of course, but that are only little inaccuracies, so to speak. Okay, we will continue with the slide, and this was the last one we already went through. So Sem begot Arpaksad. So we will now continue with a little complexity, and that is Arpaksad to Shila. That is this year. It happened. Let's read first. Genesis 11 to verse 12. As for Arpaksad, when he had lived 35 years, he begot Selah. If we take a look in Luke 3, the Greek scriptures, Luke 3 verse 35 to 36, then we see the genealogy, but in a different way. So from recent to older, so to speak. So we read of Serug, of Reu, of Peleg, of Eber, of Sela, of Canaan, of Arpaksad, of Sem, of Noah, of Lamech, etc. So the further, the older, so to speak. So as you can see here, there's another name added between Sela and Arpaksad. Arpaksad begot Sela here. And there's another name of Canaan. Is that a contradiction? No. There are some possibilities, some options possible, but the wording in scripture is very carefully chosen, as we already know, hopefully. So Selah was indeed of Canaan, but Selah was begotten by Arpaksad. So I hope you see this, that it's possible, this combination. It can be possible in case of adoption by Canaan. So biologically, in that case, Selah was a son of Arpaksad, and Canaan adopted him. It's possible. So he was of Canaan. In that sense, Canaan was his legal father. Or the brother-in-law marriage was also an instruction that when your brother dies childless, you as his brother will come to his wife, have a child with her, and that child will be considered a legal child, son or daughter of your dead brother, in that sense. So that's also a possibility, and there are undoubtedly more, but like it said here, it is possible. That's the whole thing. So we continue. So this is just the same line, nothing strange here. I only wanted to stress out that in Luke there is another name in between, but also other wording of etc. Okay, we continue. And then from here we are going to go to that overview again, because you see in the slides I skipped a lot of years, so we will go to the overview and then we continue from there to the year 2000. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Okay, so we had already talked about the deluge, about the end of the deluge, and the waters dried up in Noah's 601st years. End deluge, landing ark on Ararat, meaning the curse is reversed here on Nisan 17. Here you can see that Sem begot Arpachshad 2 years after the flood was finished, and here Arpachshad begot Selah. Okay, now we continue here. Selah begot Heber. Heber, or Heber, or Heber, I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but he is the arch father of the Hebrews, or of the Hebrew language, of which I think they spoke that from Adam on, from the creation of humanity on. That was the language, Hebrew. Okay, but he was 30 years old when he begot Heber, or Heber. Heber begot Peleg. In his days, the earth was divided. That means that there was a huge earthquake. That was after the dispersion from the Tower of Babel, when they were dispersed because of the language. How do you say that? The language, the different languages that God gave them, so they couldn't understand each other, so they went to look for people who spoke their language. They formed groups. The groups didn't trust each other because they could speak about the other group, so everyone went on the continent, which the earth was still one continent. That's what I'm just sharing my views here. And they went to look for their own place where they felt at ease. And after that, there was a huge earthquake that divided the whole earth, the continent, into continents, into islands, into whatever. How do you say that? I cannot find the word. What is Florida? Peninsula. Peninsula. So all these things happened in the days of Peleg. Peleg begot Rehu when he was 30 years old. You can see the texts, the passages here behind, of course. In the year 1781 from Adam. Rehu begot Seruch. This year from Adam. Seruch begot Nahor. Now we come close to Abram, because Nahor was the granddaddy of Abram. Seruch begot Nahor in Genesis 11:22 when he was 30 years old, in this year from Adam. Nahor begot Terah, the father of Abram, when he was 29. And then the year 2000, Terah begot Abram. The question is, because scripture doesn't tell what age Terah was when he begot Abram as a person. So let's analyze it from the, we can see it here already, of course. He was 130 years old in his 130th year. But how do we come to this number? So we will do it from the slide. Oops. Okay. I think nothing went wrong here. I pressed the wrong button. Okay. Okay, so so this is the next slide. So let's go through it step by step. So in the year 2000, Abram was born and Noah died. We will come to that. Genesis 11:26. There we read, Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. So his 3 sons in that sense. So 6 verses further, we read that the days of Terah came to be 205 years. Then he died in Charan or Haran also. Then he died in Charan. So we know that he was 70 years when he begot all his sons, but not the same age. And he was 205 when he died. So we continue. Let's go to Acts 7:4 because there's some important detail given. Then, coming out of the land of the Chaldeans, he dwells in Charan, that's Abram, and thence, after the death of his father, he exiles him into this land in which you are now dwelling. So, who is talking here? I think that Stephen is talking here, and you is Israel in general as a people. So, God exiles Abram into this land, that is the land of Israel in that sense. But he went out from the land of the Chaldeans, and he dwelt first in Charan. Okay, so what it says is that after the death, immediately after the death of his father, he exiles him. And then in Genesis 12:4 we read that Abram went just as Yahweh had told him, and Lot went with him from Charan. Abram was what age? 75 years old when he went forth from Charan. Voila, now we know what happened. So if Abram was 75 years old when he left, and we know that he left immediately after his father died, who was 205 years old, then we can easily calculate the age of Terah when he begot Abram. And that is, if we see, Abram 75 years old when he left Charan. Terah was 205 years old when he died. So 205 minus 75 is the age of 130 years. That was the age of Terah when Abram was born. And then we come to this picture here. This from Adam plus that 129.5. So in his 130th year from Terah is exactly the year 2000 from Adam. Okay, we switch. So what is so special? If we look at Genesis, we read Genesis 9 verse 28-29. Noah lived after the deluge 350 years. So all the days of Noah came to be 950 years. Then he died. So Noah was, remember, 600 years when the deluge came. And then after that he lived 350 years. The deluge was in 1651 after Adam, plus 350 is 2000 with a little rounding difference, but it is 2000, the same year, because that's how God operates. We continue. What is the significance also? Noah is in this sense the representative of the world, the old world, the ancient world before the deluge also at that time. And Abram was born and a new millennium started. The third millennium started. The second was finished. And this marked the 40th Jubilee year. And this also marked a new phase in God's plan with the birth of Abram. So this is what I mean with structure and symmetry. Okay, let's continue. 2070 after from Adam. Abram receives the promise of God. Let's read. Galatians 3 verse 16-17. Now to Abraham the promises were declared, and to his seed. He is not saying and to seeds, plural, as of many, but as of one, and to your seed, which is Christ. Paul is explaining here. Now this am I saying, a covenant having been ratified before by God, the law having come 430 years after that promise, that covenant, does not invalidate so as to nullify the promise. The promise was given in this year when Abram was 70 years old. And exactly 430 years later was the law. And that was the year of the Exodus, 2500. 70 plus 430 is 500 years after the birth of Abram. Abram was therefore 70 years old when he received God's calling in Ur of Chaldees, and his promise, oh, this was Dutch, sorry, and his promise. Abram believed it, and his faith was counted as righteousness, as we can read in Romans 4, of course. So let's go through this one. So in the year 2100, when Abram was 100 years old, he begot Isaac. And 60 years later, when Isaac was 60, he begot Jacob. Let's read Genesis 21 verse 5. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. So that's this year from Adam. Genesis 25:26. And afterward his brother came forth, and his hand was holding Esau's heel. Cute, huh? So they called his name Jacob. Now Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah bore them, the twins, Esau and Jacob. Okay, so from Isaac to the Exodus is 400 years. Let's read, just to confirm, Genesis 15 verse 13 to 14. Then Yahweh, or let's say God, said to Abram, you shall know that your seed, singular in that sense, shall become a sojourner in a land which is not theirs, plural. Why? Because your seed, it will be 400 years from Isaac. So starting from Isaac. So let's continue. And they will serve them, who? The Egyptians, and these will do evil to them and humiliate them for 400 years. But I will indeed adjudicate the nation which they shall serve, and afterward they shall come forth with a great many goods. So in this sense, your seed here refers to Isaac. Okay, so I think we will leave the next slide for the next vlog. Let's continue to the quickly to the overview. So we went through this one, huh? Abraham was 70 years old when he received God's calling and his promise. Abram was 100 years old 30 years later after the promise. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. Isaac was 60 years old when Jacob was born. This year, of course, just this keeps on adding from Adam. You understand that, of course. This is the arrival of Jacob in Egypt. It's not really necessary because scripture gives other information that is perfectly consistent, but this is nice to mention. Jacob was 130 years old when he arrived in Egypt. You can read that in Genesis 47 verse 28, because it says he lived in Egypt for 17 years and he dies at the age of 147. So we will leave it at that. The next vlog we will start with, of course, with the Exodus. So thank you for watching and see you next time.